Hey guys, what's up? It's me, Jules, here for WhatCulture Gaming, joined as ever by the lovely Scott. That's
Hello.
right, it is double the fun because me and Scott are together in a video, and today we are talking about something that's quite close to our hearts. It's the video game industry, or more specifically, the state that the video game industry is in at the moment, and as with regards to loot boxes and basically all of the money-grubbing, nickel and diming that you said just before we went on. Basically, what's happening to the industry now? Are we seeing an evolution of the industry towards something a bit more wholehearted?
Well, sir. So the thing that just happened as of like 40 minutes ago as we're recording this is Activision and Blizzard are being sued by two companies representing their shareholders because they didn't disclose basically the optics of the whole Bungie split from Activision wasn't conveyed to the shareholders very well, and they're being sued by... Go on.
Wait a minute, so that means that this is actually technically breaking news, which means you've got to hit that intro.
Hot dang, there's news, give it all you got. I guess it's time for Jules and Scott.
And we're back in the room. Oh, God,
how could we forget such a thing?
Sorry about that. Yes, so that is the news, basically, that the shareholders feel that they've been misled by the fact that Activision and Bungie, you may well know, have split and parted ways, and they're taking their destiny into...
But that made me think of a wider conversation, as because there's a few things that have been happening across the last few months in particular that I think point to a changing of the guard, a changing of the way that the consumer is being treated. And we kind of saw this, for me, it probably goes back further than this, but one of the first things that I saw was obviously the fallout from Star Wars Battlefront 2.
Yep.
And we kind of had this big explosion as to, like, you know, the legality or illegality of loot boxes in the game. And then Belgium investigated it, the Belgium Gaming Commission. You had Hawaii's representatives looked into it. And the fallout from that basically is that now, all around the world...
Loot boxes in Belgium are illegal in gaming.
And so that kind of, like, the fallout from that then, made that they were illegal in Belgium, and also the drop rates have to be disclosed in China. And then other developers started saying, okay, well, we'll disclose our drop rates. Psyonix do it for Rocket League, or they do it for some tournaments, and Valve did it for for Dota 2, and basically that's one part of it.
And this has all been punctuated by other news stories, such as Activision is a huge proponent of the microtransaction sort of forerunner, as they were in their video games. They've come up in the news recently with their reticles for Black Ops.
Black Ops 4,
charging £2 for a smiley face reticle and being happy about it, all the while saying that that microtransactions for them and their business model, that it is an essential part of their business model, and then backhandedly giving their CEOs, their new person that took over, a huge hefty bonus. Now, I'm not saying that you shouldn't be giving people bonuses if they work very, very hard, but at the same time, if you've just signed onto a job and you're getting a $2 million or whatever it is pay packet on top of the signing thing that you've just done there, in an industry where you're saying it's essential that we can barely scrape by without these microtransactions, maybe giving it two different messages there, but that's...
It's not the best.
No.
But yeah, there's obviously a humongous amount of money going back and forward. If you look at the Battlefront 2 stuff, EA actually took a huge hit to their stocks. They lost $3.1 billion. And basically that was one of the things, the only way that companies like this are ever going to take notice is if something massive like that happens on the monetary side.
It comes down to a point of we as gamers, we might feel like we are very passive in the industry that we're actually paying money to be a part of. However, we do actually have a massive say over how the industry shapes itself. Just because loot boxes came onto the map and were very, very successful in terms of a business thing, they require very little development costs and blah 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 getting them set up. By saying no with our wallets, we have now shaped it. By kicking up a fuss, we have now deemed that some of them are classed as gambling and aren't allowed to. The drop rates, like you were saying before, have to be included. We are making it, in a self-governing way, it better for ourselves, because the publishers will do stuff until they are told that they can't do stuff by us.
And that was one of the biggest things, is that you can kind of roll it all together. But another thing that happened just after Battlefront 2 was the FIFA boycott as well.
I'm not too familiar on what that was.
So FIFA 18 players were just like, we're sick of Ultimate Team, we're sick of the way that we put so much money into this mode and we're never really getting anything meaningful back out of it. There was a whole movement hashtag boycott FIFA or whatever it was to boycott against that. But that leads into the newer stuff in this year, which is just that we have this gaming industry, this gaming climate where loot boxes are illegal in some countries. They're being investigated by others. There's a European body of UK, well, the UK is involved in it. This gambling body that's investigating the illegality of loot boxes across Europe. Who knows how long we'll be remaining in Europe to find out how that goes, but not to worry. At least they're investigating fascinating stuff. And so that kind of like at least shows the way that the industry is moving forward.
Yeah.
And then you have something like this where like Bungie just randomly seemed to depart from Activision, and it seemed like the shareholders found out about that alongside the rest of us. But it all points to the fact that the people who are just looking at the numbers at the top aren't considering the people, the person, the player, the consumer. That's the thing that needs to change, and that seems to be the thing that is changing across the board.
What strikes me as very odd about this very recent development, as we said, it was only like about 40 minutes before we recorded this, is why would they keep it a secret or not explain it as well that they would to their investors? I mean, sure, your stock will drop because of the fact that it is a major partner that is leaving, but at the same time, if it's something that these things don't just happen overnight. You don't just walk don't just walk into Mr. Activision's office and just slam your on the table and say, how do you like them nuts? You don't
do you want a t-shirt?
Yeah, you don't do that. You basically have to go through the legality of getting contracts drawn up or basically dismantled in ways. So the shareholders should have, or
they totally have a point.
They should have been informed about this. Like, this lawsuit will go badly for Activision if this is the case. There is no way that you can get away with misleading your shareholders in this day and age.
Well, that's the thing, and like I said, that's why it all connects to the likes of EA and the money that's going around the thing, because like we've seen so many video game decisions that get predicated on what the shareholders will like and what will guarantee money coming back in, and we've covered this in a bunch of different news things and podcasts and whatever else. But that's the way that you get through to these companies at the top. And even something like Bungie, like going free or whatever, like you look at the way that was revealed to the public, which seems to be the same way that the shareholders found out, which was the insider report from Kotaku saying that Bungie were popping champagne and they were cheering the fact that they were let loose. But like you said, that would have been happening across various talks for days or weeks or months. And you can't just neglect the people that are paying the bills.
It's so strange because it seems to be that there is a different... There's a club almost, isn't there? It's like you're either inside or you're on the outside, when in actuality we should be the ones informing how these things go. It's as much Bungie's decision to leave Activision as it is the players asking them to do it, surely. It's a sense of communal ownership of these things.
And I think that's what we've kind of like, I don't know how much we've wrenched control back from the people at the top, but if you have a quick Google of Activision Blizzard at the minute, there are a lot of investigative pieces being done into the way that they do business and the way that obviously they're very money hungry, very number crunchy, same as EA. Like EA and Activision stand out as two of the biggest people who'll just cast franchises to the side or cancel stuff. You look at the amount of things that EA have cancelled that relate to Star Wars because they just weren't going to pan out properly or whatever, whereas there's clearly a fan base that would respond to that stuff. The silver lining for all of it, which is a nice thing to take away, is that Red Dead Redemption 2 was actually the highest selling game of last year overall. Not necessarily the highest grossing if you looked at the microtransactions in a game. Something like FIFA or Call of Duty still beats that, but in terms of unit sales and the amount of revenue that it made as a new property, new unit, not a new property, it stands out as the number one selling game.
But it's interesting. It's interesting that this brings up a sort of larger discussion about public image. Like EA have a
Optics, mate.
EA have a bad public image.
Yes.
They have had.
Oh, they barely have one.
For many years, people associate them in the industry with the most money-grubbing people that are there. But it's not like every other publisher doesn't set out to make money.
Oh, totally.
Like, the whole thing is that you get into this ethos, they're like, Rockstars, for many, are the good guys. Yet they are one of the biggest publishers. They are one of the biggest sort of like money-hungry people. Look at the amount of microtransactions in their games.
True.
But because of the way that they've marketed themselves on the PR side, they stand.
It's a weird balancing act because
they also don't mess up as big, as large as Star Wars.
And that's the thing. At least in Rockstar's case, like GTA Online has always been free. Like yes, they've fuddled with the way that the shark cards work, and they've made people, it's like, oh, you've got to play for 50 hours to get something that you could just buy for £5.
Yes,
something like that. Like obviously there's a whole grey area there, but I think the main conversation is how you treat the consumer and the player, or even the shareholder, the public shareholder. Like you need to respect the people that are putting the money into the industry. You can't just keep siphoning off funds in this other way that completely abuses the goodwill or the trust that people have in certain products and certain franchises and brands.
I'd be interested to know what the people at home think about this in terms of sort of like, how are you feeling about the Activision and Bungie split? And actually, just out of the publishers, let's just say the AAA publishers, who do you trust the most out of them? I'd be interested to find that out, because you've got to wonder, because it is about public perception. Like, do you guys trust EA? Are there any people out there who would defend the actions of people like EA and Activision Blizzard, things like that?
The thing is, like when you mentioned Rockstar, like Rockstar and CD Projekt Red are two of the biggest developer-publisher combos who have full control over the monetary side of things. And as you saw with The Witcher 3, they completely were like, here's some free DLC, we'll support this game after launch. And then they rolled out their paid DLC later. And it is just that way of making sure the people at the top, the ones doing the number crunching decisions, have players in mind.
I mean, as a personal pet peeve, I cannot express the annoyance I feel every single time that I get a game and it has day one DLC.
Right.
Or I hear in the week or two up before launch, the developers will be saying like, and we'll be supporting this with DLC that you'll get maybe a week after. It's like, now see, at some point, DLC, because I know it goes through the phases of building a game. You get it gold plated or whatever it is. They get the gold stamp. You get a gold stamp.
Put the rims on it.
Yeah, whatever it is, and then and then it goes all forward into production. And from that point, you're allowed to work whatever it is. But I wish there was just that little bit less of a sort of like hit the ground running, get as much money.
It's always a thing of like you've just paid like full price for however much that's going to be, and immediately it's like, do you want to pay more? Do you want a little bit more?
Yeah,
a little more of that. And so it's one of those things where like going forward, like I mean, the obviously take away point isn't that these sorts of companies they're obviously going to keep making money with these practices, but it is a balancing act, and you've seen or we're seeing some things boil over, and the overwhelming reaction from shareholders and the public being this isn't okay, and we're gonna take you to task for it, whether that's through a class action lawsuit or an illegality clause or whatever, whether it's from loot boxes to certain business decisions in games making them just not feel very palatable or whatever. Like the way that these companies at the top, the number crunching people, are handling the IPs isn't going down very well, and I think that points to like a change in the scenery, the life itself.
It will be very interesting to see how this lawsuit plays out, and obviously we will bring you updates as and when such things happen, as well as any other sort of gaming updates that go, because hopefully we'll get to see you more in this two-person use format, because we've missed doing it, because it's just a nice little chat. It's easier to set up than a podcast, and it means that we can get more fresh content out to you guys, because we love you very much. Thank you so much for supporting us, by the way. So with that in mind, I'm Jules for WhatCulture.com.
Scott from WhatCulture.com.
You can follow me at RetroJ with a 0 over on Twitter.
Oh lordy, I'm /LP89 on Twitter.
He never expects it.
You never know
He's done this for 2 and a bit years and he still never gets that right.
Twitter mate.
And as always, you guys have at home been incredibly awesome. Don't forget that, and we'll speak to you soon. Bye.